Call. And next on the line is George. Hello, George.
Yeah, good morning, Fred, and a great guest. I concur also that we need to put more emphasis in our educational system on science, primarily because that way our students and our young citizens as they grow up will not be subjective to scientifically motivated political propaganda. Just like, for instance, DDT. DDT's been suspended for a number of time, and malaria has made a huge comeback, so much so that the WHO, under the United Nations, talking about reintroducing the use of DDT. True or false?
Yeah.
True, that's exactly right. I'd like to ask your guest if he watched the Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth.
Sure.
Okay. Why is it in that movie that Al Gore's portrayal of global warming, and incidentally, just as a quick aside, 100 years ago in Albany, New York, they started keeping very intensive records of climatic temperatures, as you well know. The average then was 42.2 degrees, and today, 100 years later, in Albany, New York, same circumstances, 42.2. The bottom line here is in Al Gore's movie, not once did he mention solar activities and solar flares, solar cycles, as possibly the culprit behind a slight warming up that may or may not exist on the globe. I mean, how would your and we've got a local guy that's an internet skeptic around putting on some evaluations of the data, a lot of which was drawn from Al Gore's movie, that clearly shows that there's some bad science going on. And just one last point, your guest says it's evil. It's just bad for corporations to finance private research, but no problem for universities to accept money confiscated by the government from these industries for government research that funds all kinds of activities, and they have, in fact, a vested interest in said research and those financial sources coming in. And finally, Kyoto Protocol, in my view, is just simply a way to shake down the producer nations to redistribute money globally.
David Suzuki, your thoughts?
Well, I don't even know where to begin on a response like this. First of all, I've always defended universities as a place where basic research goes on, where we have tenure, and so we're freed from all kinds of corporate pressures or political pressures. And one of the terrible aspects of universities is that universities, because they've had financial problems, have welcomed corporate money coming into the university, and it's changed a lot of the scientific practices in the university. But I've always felt that it's universities where government money, that is money coming from the public, comes to support basic research, and we're freed from the kind of commitments to another agenda. When you have a scientist working for the tobacco industry, or when you have a scientist getting money from the fossil fuel industry, it seems to me that it makes a lot of sense that now their pronouncements are skewed. They're shaped by the source of the funding. That's why university support is so important. I'm amazed to hear someone say that the universities are the heart of another corporate agenda. I mean, all of these other statements, Al Gore's film being biased, well, I don't know where to begin. Because of Ronald Reagan's failure or disbelief in global warming as an issue, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was set up by the United Nations. Over 2,000 scientists, climatologists. They spent 5 years examining over 20,000 scientific papers before they came to the conclusion that global warming is happening. And then they took another few years to finally say, yes, humans are a part of that process. The human imprint is there. And every year since then, the scientific community has become louder and louder. You have the National Academy of Science, the Royal Society of London, the Royal Society of Canada. These are the institutions of the leading scientists of the countries have been saying global warming is real, humans are a part of it, we've got to act. So then when I have people like your listener calling and saying, Al Gore's film is biased, wait a minute now. Al Gore has just presented what the IPCC and the leading scientific institutions are saying. So you can pick and choose and find all kinds of things that may seem to support your position, but you've got to come up with really definitive evidence that this overwhelming majority of scientists and the scientific papers are saying.
One last
so
question
much
for
of
Dr.
the denial is based on a point of view, and people don't want their point of view shaken.
One last question for Dr. Suzuki. Is water vapor a greenhouse gas?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Why is it not included in all the models when they do the models graphing? All they show is carbon dioxide. Water vapor is 95% of the greenhouse gas released by the oceans, seas, and rivers. How can man be responsible for that?
No, man is not. Water vapor is a part of the model, as is methane and CFCs and the many other greenhouse gases as well.
Well, maybe you should get that word to Al Gore, because he doesn't see it as part of the model.
Sorry, do you think climatologists are stupid, or do they have some kind of alternate agenda? You know, you raise these points, but go to the IPCC website and look at it. This is, as far as I'm concerned, this is the most credible group because it's based on such a wide representation, and they've done a lot of studies. You raise these points of solar flares. Do you think climatologists haven't paid attention to that and dealt with that? Go to the website and find out.
All right, we must close here. George, thank you for your call. Sorry we couldn't get to everybody's calls, but David Suzuki, you've given us many action points here in terms of our own lives and in terms of inducing legislators to take our environment and environmental...
Boy, do you need a lot of science education in the United States.
Well,
and I think it's instructive, you know, that in Canada we've had The Nature of Things, a science program since 1960 in prime time with a large audience. There has never been in the United States in that time a science program on primetime television on one of the major American networks.
Yeah, on public television, certainly, but you're right, not on the
major.
But
those are different audiences.
Sure. David Suzuki, your new book, David Suzuki, The Autobiography. Thanks very much for joining us from the San Francisco Bay Area today. Thanks to Charlie